All right, so good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. Today we're going to be talking about a chaotic encryption key system. It's not an encryption algorithm. It's more like a ratcheting thing. It's a research project, so just be open-minded. We're still looking for ideas. We still got a lot of challenges to solve. So we'll talk about that. So I'm Francois Cloutier from Quebec. I'm working for my own small company, which is Arcos Research. We're doing consulting, and we are investing in research as well. And
I'm Francois Gagnon. I'm a teacher at CEKS Sainte-Foy, where I also do research in the cybersecurity research lab.
So this presentation will be divided into 5 big parts. At first, we'll do just a small overview of what complexity sciences are, what they are studying, what is a chaotic system, and then we will talk about the concept that we are presenting today. After that, we'll do a small demo, discuss about the future work that still need to be done, and the challenges that we have, and we'll have time for questions as well. So a brief history of that complexity sciences is in 1892, they were trying to find a way to improve navigations with the boats without necessarily using like stars and all those things. So they were working on the three-body problem to try to define like the position of the people on Earth or on seas by using the position of the Sun, Earth, and the Moon. And Henri Poincaré just discovered that there is no general mathematical solution to the three-body problem, just only approximations that will necessarily offset over time and will be not very accurate on the long term. Then it took almost 70 years later for Edward Lorenz in '63 to explicitly demonstrate that you could have a completely erratic chaotic result with only 3 variables, which is quite small. Then almost 10 years later, he was able to explain why it was happening. It was because very small changes in the initial conditions will yield to drastically different results. So that's a butterfly effect. So again, it was just rediscovering or explaining why you could only approximate, and the approximation is not accurate in the long term because you have what we call a strange attractor, which is a kind of point over which the result will oscillate, but the oscillation will hit at some point a tipping point and just oscillate over another attractor, but it will still be non-accurate and highly unpredictable. Then in '75, following those researches, Lee and York were the first to use the term chaos to describe those behaviors of some systems. Then at the beginning of the '80s, there was a bunch of people, amongst them Brian Arthur. He was an economist with a very strong math background, and he was studying all those economical theories, which are, well, I don't know if there's economists in here, but sometimes economists are way off the map with their theories, like the invisible hand and things like that. So he discovered that you could have increasing returns, which is feedback loops that you could cause lock-ins in the system. And he also explained why the butterfly effect was happening and why over time a chaotic system is absolutely inaccurate. It's because of the path dependency or sequence dependency. So without knowing the exact sequence, you cannot predict the future, and you cannot backtrack as well because the sequence is not existing anymore once you get there. So Eve met with several people like Murray Gell-Mann, a physicist, a Nobel Prize. And at the mid-'80s, they created the Santa Fe Institute, which is an institute studying complexity sciences. So that was the beginning of the science. So what exactly is complexity sciences? That's That's the question. Mainly, very simple explanation could be that the complexity sciences is studying low-dimensional chaotic systems and high-dimensional chaotic systems. So sorry for that. It's a very theoretical part, but just try to stay awake. I know it could be boring. So a low-dimensional chaotic system is a set of intricated variables or agents in relation. It's erratic and seemingly random. Seemingly because it's nonlinear, but it's still deterministic. But you cannot always express them using mathematical equations because even maths have some limitations when studying some phenomena. A high-dimensional chaotic system, it's still a set of intricated variables or agents. It's erratic, but it also possesses real random properties. It's nonlinear and non-deterministic. And they cannot be represented at all because of the non-deterministic factor by mathematical equations, which makes sense. And all that because agents in the system can adapt, learn, change, or act in a way that is totally random. So can those two types of system interact together? If it's closed systems or autonomous, no. If it's open to other systems, yes, they can. What's happening if you have two different systems interacting together with different dimensionality? Let's say you have system A, which is a low-dimensional system, and you have the system B, which is high-dimensional system. The meta-system AB, if they are interacting together because of the mutual impact, will become, in turn, high-dimensional. That's an interesting point that we'll discuss later. So examples of chaotic systems, meteorological systems, biological systems like Francois or anybody of you, or when you talk together, your high-dimensional chaotic system itself. Gravitational system like solar systems, galaxies, universe, social networks, stock market, ant colonies, some types of nuclear reactions as well. What are the characteristics of those systems? You have agents and variables and relations. You have temporal factors because it's still temporal dependent. It's an evolution. You have tipping points. You have opacity because you can't always know exactly what's happening in the system, in the relations, in the agents. And because of those characteristics, it generates a combinatorial explosion that could be, like for high-dimensional chaotic systems, absolutely infinite. So because of those characteristics, chaotic systems are highly unpredictable or not predictable at all. For the second part of the presentation, Francois will explain you exactly what a concept is about and how it works.
Okay, so what I'll try to do is I'll try to explain to you how we can leverage the chaotic systems into to use for encryption or specifically for key management. So just to set the expectation, let's talk about what is it, what it's not. So it's definitely a research project. So whenever you feel something is wrong about it, it's because it's the research project. So that's it. So whenever all the question at the end, the answer will be, well, it's a research project. It's in very, very early stage, so we don't have answers to all the questions, but please do ask them anyway. Maybe we haven't asked some question ourselves. It is a key management paradigm. It's not an encryption algorithm like AES or something like that. And we do have an implementation. It is implementation, so it's not a good implementation yet. So how it works. What we're going to use is we're going to use two chaotic systems, two copies of the same chaotic systems, one on each client that want to talk together. And they will be, we'll put them in a setup that they are co-evolving, so they are synchronized. And those chaotic systems will generate keys that will change the keys for every message. So what we have, a few properties that we have is that they will look random, and well, look is an an important word here. We don't know yet how random they are. We haven't studied that. The theory says that it will be pretty random, but it's not clear yet what it is. They will have to stay synchronized all the way, so that's going to be a problem. We'll talk about it. Our key will be used only once. Then we throw them away. We evolve the system and generate a new keys, and they won't be exchanged over the network. So the systems are evolving, and the keys are generated locally. They don't have to transit on the network. So let's say we have a chaotic system, which is built of 48 agents. Each agent has many properties. One of them we call the level, which is 8 bits. And what we'll do is we'll take the level of each agent at a specific moment, and from that we'll derive key material. So for 48 agents, we will get 384 bits. So with that, we can use a part for a key and a part for an IV. And so what's important in all this is that the key part or the key material is just a very, very small portion of the whole system. So the agent has a level, but it has many other properties, and those properties are very important for the evolution of the system, but we don't use them for key material. Just to give you a quick overview of what an agent looks like, or what a system looks like. So we could have, for example, a system with 48 agents. Each has as I said, 8 bits level. Each agent has a bunch of rule sets. So 256 rule set. The rules, so think about it about a graph. The nodes are the agents, and the rule set are the connections between the nodes. And each agent impact other agents, including possibly itself. And the graph will be evolving, so the graph will be ever changing. At some point, we'll have a complete graph. At some point, we'll have a disconnected graph. So the chaotic behavior will come and modify the underlying graphs. So when we pick, for the queue, we pick only the level, so the number in the nodes, but then there's the whole structure behind that is not related to the key part, or not directly related to the key part. And there's a notion of delays that a connection at one point will have an impact in some future in the system. So the impact is not always right away. It's quite hard to get an idea of what is the space of all this, or what is the combinatorial explosion about this. We're looking on it. It's not easy. We don't have a clear answer. What we do know, and I'll talk about a little bit about that later, is that even the combinatorial explosion is really huge. There's going to be a bunch of equivalent states that are not exactly the same in number, but they might behave exactly the same. And I'll just maybe come back quickly later. So. Again, with the key space, so I'm just going to focus on one agent in my system just to show you a property that's we believe is quite interesting. So we've got agent A1. Of course, there's another bunch of agents in the system. So A1 starts at level 5, and it has other values for the other parameters. So P represents all the other parameters. I'm not going to give values for those parameters in the example. So when the system evolves, the agent A1 will change its level from 5 to, let's say, 12. And this change will be impacted by other agents as well. So the red arrows shows potential impact for other agents. So then A1 will continue to evolve, 29, 28, blah, 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 3. And at some point, obviously, it will come back to a level of 5. But what's interesting here is that the next step will not be 12, or will not always be 12, because there are other factors that will impact the evolution, and the parameters are probably not going to be the same. So even though the key generated by A1, or the key part that is generated by A1 is the same, the next evolution will not be the same.
So oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So earlier, when I was talking about sequence dependency, if you don't know where the system is from, you can't know where it's going. So that's exactly that because of the delays and stocks in the system, right?
So we can imagine that at some point, generating lots of keys will get exactly the same key that we've previously seen, but the next one of that key will not be the next one of the same key in the previous states. So the loop will be much longer. Eventually we're going to loop, right? But it's going to be much longer. So then again, we generate new keys, and then at some other point we'll fall on a state that has been previously visited, and then we'll go in another direction because of the other parameters. All right, so that was for key material. So how the system works, and it's quite similar to what Trevor talked previously. So if Alice and Bob want to talk together, they will each have a pair of systems that are matched together. So for instance, the output of Alice will be a system, so system ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's going to be the input system of Bob, and then the output system of Bob, 1A, 2B, 3C, will be the input system of Alice. So they have to have matching systems, a pair of matching systems. So if we take a message from Alice sending to Bob, so they both have the same system. Alice will generate a key from the system, so give me a key. We'll encrypt the message she wants to send with whatever encryption algorithm she wants to use, so they have to agree with that. She's going to send the cipher to Bob. Bob's going to derive a key from the co-evolving system, so he's going to get the same key. Then he will decrypt the message using the same algorithm, and then, important part, they will both evolve the system to get in a new state where they can generate the next key. So the evolution will be quite important, and they have to stay synchronized. If one evolves and the other doesn't, then we're kind of we have a problem because now they cannot decrypt the message of each other. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we keep systems synchronized, or how we fail to, in possibly in that case, and what needs to be addressed. So for first, let's start with the sender. So right now, the sender will evolve his system. So he's sending the message over TCP, and as soon as he receives the acknowledge from this TCP, he evolves its system. Okay, so it's well, it's not really secure. So we could desynchronize those systems simply by having an attacker that's doing something like a man in the middle, preventing the message to get to Bob. So Bob will not evolve his system and just faking an acknowledge, and then Alice will evolve her system. Of course, the attacker has to have full control over the network to do that, or good control over the network. But what's interesting here that wouldn't happen, let's say, for another attack using, we can do that as well with SSL or something, is she has to do it only once. So she prevents one message to reach Bob, she sends a fake acknowledge, and then she disappears from the network. She doesn't have to man in the middle anymore. The systems are unsynchronized, and then the attacker doesn't need to be there anymore. So obviously we'll have to work on that to have a safer acknowledge. That's not been done yet. From the other way around, so when the receiver will evolve his system, so if we only encrypt the message, send the message, then there's nothing telling Bob that what he received and decrypts is not just garbage. How can he differentiate between garbage? So if an attacker just sends garbage to Bob decrypts and say, all right, you send me that message, I'm going to evolve. So we need to have a stronger, I'm going to skip through those, and we need to have a stronger way to authenticate the message. What is interesting, so where we'll go is the last one. What is interesting is that we don't have a shortage of key. We can generate key material. We've got lots of key material. So we can use one key to encrypt the message and another key to authenticate the message with something like HMAC, or that it requires a key, and the two entities will have those keys generated from the chaotic system. So instead of generating a 384 bits of key, we need a longer key, one part for encryption, one part for authentication. So what happens if the attacker gets an encrypted message? Then he has to brute force, in this case, two keys, one for encryption, one for authentication. So that's nothing new there. So what happens if he gets an encrypted message and the two keys, or the keys used for that message? So obviously he can get the plain text easily, but since the keys are used only once, then after decrypting that message, there's nothing he can do anymore. And the keys are not related. So having the key, or in chaotic system, it translates to having the level of all the agents at a specific point doesn't help you predict what's going to be the next step, because you need, as Jean-Francois told before, you need the history to predict the next key. So you don't know what's going to happen next. Now, what if he gets an encrypted message plus the initial state? So now there's going to be a problem. We're going to solve that problem. So if he has an encrypted message, so an attacker will have the encrypted message. If he has also the initial system state, then he can catch up. He can simulate his own system and catch up. So he takes the initial state, generate a first key, decipher the message, get something that could be the plain text, then get the second key to authenticate the message and say, authentication doesn't work, so let's evolve our system, do the same thing. They don't match. He's going to do that a few times, and then at some point, he's going to catch up with the state of the system for the two parties, and he's going to be able to decrypt the message, and then he's in sync with the systems. So how we solve this particular problem is that we're using the message content to impact the system evolution. So an attacker would need to guess, or to have access to all the messages exchanged so far to be able to catch up. So it's still possible if you have the initial system and the full set of message exchange to do a catch up, but you cannot do it with only one message. So the idea here is that the evolution will take the exchange message as a parameter, and from a specific state, if you evolve with a given message, you end up in a state Y, and if you evolve with another message, you end up in a completely different state. That's also interesting is here the evolution, because it might end up breaking the equivalency of the state. So you might have two equivalent systems, but since they are poked with something external, then they are not equivalent anymore. So we're going to see if we can have a better complex or better combinatorial explosion with this thing. An idea we're toying with, so it's really important that it's an idea, is using something that's related to the one-time pad. So if we are in a specific state, we want to encrypt a message of whatever 900 bits. So we're creating a clone of our system. Then we're going to generate key material, as much key material as we need from that system. So in that case, we're going to need 3 states. These states are evolving without any input from the outside. So the evolution here is with the empty message. And we generate enough key material. We encrypt our initial message. Then the evolution of the original system will be done with the message and parameters. So that's going to end up with a completely new state that's not related with state x, x plus 1, or x plus 2. And then we can delete all the clone we've got and keep going just with the main system. This is the same idea here of having a clone and evolving the clone will be applied to get 1 key, to get 2 keys, or to get 3 keys. So if we need 1 key for encryption, 1 key for authentication, then we're using the same idea of cloning the system, generate the keys on that clone and then evolving the main. So we'll go back to Jean-Francois.
So we had a great debate this morning whether we'd use my computer or his computer. So I apologize, it's a Windows computer because that's his computer. So just a little precision is that when we say that the message is impacting the evolution, we're talking about the plain text message. So to guess the evolution of the system, you would first need to decrypt the messages, but to decrypt the messages, you need to guess the evolution. So it's kind of the chicken or the egg problem here. So let's say we generate like a 256 bits key. It takes a few seconds because it's like thousands of parameters that we need to initialize. So it's like 3 seconds. But after that, if we say that we want to generate like 100,000 keys, it's going to be kind of fast. Yep. Did I put an extra 0 or? Well, oh yeah, I think I just rolled 1,000,000. So it should take about like 290 seconds. So less than 0.3 milliseconds per key generation and evolution and all the rest. So based on that, you can. We created a very simple test chat application. So we first need to open a system definition, which will just with matching systems. Then we put the listener. Then what we can do is send a message. It's going to be encrypted, decrypted, and if we send the message a couple of times, like the second time, a third time, or even a fourth time, what we can see is that because the keys are changing and the message is impacting the evolution of the system and a bunch of other parameters, the IV will be different, the authentication of the message will be encrypted using a different key, and the message in itself will be encrypted using a different key. So, so it makes things a little bit harder to decrypt, even with the same message. So we still have lots of future work to do. We need to prevent malicious desynchronization because right now it's only like on the TCP ACK that we are triggering the evolution. If you guys have any ideas, we have discussed like few ideas, like we could use a kind of one-way DH calculation just to send an acknowledge that could be understood only by someone having the previous information or the initial message. But we still need to discuss about it and see what we can do. And also we would like to work on how could we resynchronize the system. We didn't work on the initial synchronization so far, but another idea could be like to use diffie element to generate a seed that would be used to generate the system at first. But or we could just not synchronize it over the internet, like if you have a dongle, a VPN dongle or something like that, or a machine-machine interface that you can just install yourself. But it's still like along with there because we need to. We still need to do a lot of work, like to just make it work properly. So we still need contributors. Help and ideas are very welcome in this project. And we have a small challenge just to demonstrate or trying to see if someone can predict the key sequence from having the keys only. So this summer, what we're going to do is we have a small project that is funded by, partly by NSERC, the Research Council of Canada. And we will re-engineer the proof of concept because that's my own implementation. It's a proof of concept like patch over patch over patch over patch, just make it work. So we're going to be building a new architecture with a better approach from what we've learned in the past. So, any